proposed ordinance goes from, there's feet and floors, and we take that from, in some cases, there were floor limitations, like 35.3 or 35.2, says not. And then what we've done elsewhere in the ordinance is a few places, it actually just refers directly back to the table. And so we just replicated that throughout the ordinance where instead of saying exact height, dimensions, whatever, we just say refer to table 6 out of really. And so did that throughout the ordinance, just taking out wherever it would say like not more than 35 feet, just say not going to 6 308, et cetera, et cetera. And that's essentially just repeated in each of these sections. We just went to each chapter of the code for each individual zone and referred back to the table. It's the table itself that the remove side limitation. So one of the predominant concerns, we've been talking with the city attorney today, how do we get people who are just going to build a 7-story building on the lot next to me? And how do we know that we're not going to see just overgrowth in lists where it's not appropriate? And I would say that the market forces are very strong right now and are not going to see that type of construction. So the building code still applies. There's type 1 construction, type 5 construction, and so on and so on. And that by the time you get to type 1 construction, you're in concrete and steel, glass, sprinklers, you could already build essentially unlimited, 100-story skyscraper or something using that type of construction. That type of construction is very expensive and it doesn't scale well to small properties. So based on kind of what we're seeing is around the average price of home in town right now at about $400,000, you're not going to see much more than a 3-story in a single family, which is not incompatible with the 1 and 2-story that you're already seeing in those areas. So, I mean, if somebody were to just kind of ignore the market, they have an unlimited pocket and they really wanted to build a 4 or 5-story building, it's possible they could do something like that in the neighborhood, but it's not really practical. So we just can't imagine that that's going to occur. And we don't want to be so afraid of, this kind of highly improbable situation that we stay away from doing anything about it. So we're saying there is the risk by doing this one could do something like this, but also, that is, presumably more square footage, more residents, more development impact fees, more space, more people shopping at our restaurants and stores and, being part of our community. So there's a benefit to that as well. So that's kind of where I'm at from just kind of explaining what we did with the ordinance and what the background was. I'm mostly happy to answer questions about this. Our goal would be to have this, if everybody reaches consensus tonight on the September 3rd business agenda and the September 17th agenda. So that answer your questions.
Questions or comments? Some of the go ahead.
Is it true that after 3 stories you need to have an elevator?
You can get to 4 stories without an elevator with some other provisions, but most people technically just do the elevator because you have to. There's more building code requirements that I'm qualified to speak on, but there is a way around it. But just most people won't do it. I've seen a few 4-story block-up apartment buildings, but it's not very common.
So 35 feet is a reasonable adjustment before there's extra fees that make it difficult to develop higher than 35.
Correct. And you start going into construction typology as you go over, I think, 45 feet. So that's where you start having to use concrete. So if you've been, in downtown, Tacoma or Seattle, or whatever, you start seeing they can do wood construction on top, and you have to start putting concrete underneath it. They call them body buildings. So you'll end up seeing, like the 5/2 or 4/2 or something like that, which if we did end up with something like that downtown, it would probably be pretty jarring. But I just don't think the market forces are really pushing in that direction right now. Even some of the newer buildings in downtown, they are 3 to 5 stories total.
The general idea with this a couple of years ago or a year ago was to have more density closer to town and utilize some of the properties that we have that can't build above the 35 feet. And also we have some lots downtown where we like to say we've had a fire and the building's gone. They can rebuild that building now with apartments on top and retail on the bottom in our downtown zone. So that kind of creates what we wanted, people walking around downtown, some density. So
And we may have to accept, some 4 or 5 story buildings as a result of that, but a few of those throughout our downtown, and they will dramatically change the character. We've got 3-story buildings down there and people are needing to live there, so.
With the appropriate design.
Right.
Yeah.
Design, I think they can fit in, especially with some of the historic structures that we have existing there.
I think there's some growth, and I think that's important. The more people we can have out here, the more density we put in, the better off we are. There's not a whole lot of places we can build, so let's do what we can where we can, and keep on doing that.
any more comments? Are we good with moving this forward? Everybody? All right. Okay. Jay, you're up again.
Just as quick, this is shopping cart regulations. We had a study session over a month ago where we talked about kind of what some other communities had done, brought some code snippets forward as kind of concepts and whatnot, and then put pen and paper last week to get this into a draft ordinance format that we could start working. And again, trying to target a September 3rd, September 17th series of review approvals. We had our city attorney take a look at this. She's making some recommendations on how to just kind of streamline some language, trim it down. But generally speaking, the content's going to remain about the same. And so essentially we start off with just a series of definitions. One for trying to give specificity to the terms as they're used within this ordinance. Of note within this are identification. They're get into that and just talked last time about the 4 required things that have to be on a card in order for its removal of state law. And the security measures. This is another one to keep on. So this was all of the things that we talked about last week, whether that be electronically activated self-braking wheels, some kind of pole affixed to the cart, some kind of bollard or other device that keeps the cart from leaving the premises, utilization of the cart control and retrieval company, dedicated security personnel, or other measures deemed appropriate effectively. Maybe somebody has something we haven't thought of, or there's future technology that comes out that helps kind of future-proof that scenario. We talked about having some exemptions, and so exemptions for establishments would provide 15 or fewer shopping carts. Again, you can change these numbers. This was the 15 was used by a law and the 3,000 square feet of retail area. The discussion here had kind of bounced around across a couple of different numbers. And so we actually went out and looked at the retail square footage of some of our smaller stores, like the shopping mall and stuff. And so 3,000 square feet is kind of a cutoff for a lot of the smaller stores. And then over that, you start getting into basically what we'll call them kind of the mid-size retail here in town until you get to the big box stores, which are 20,000 plus square feet. So we're recommending for the exemption that it be the 15 or fewer shopping carts for businesses less than 3,000 square feet of retail area. But again, it's up for discussion. The next kind of section is about what is the actual requirement of this ordinance. That is that carts be contained on site and they must retrieve them if lost, stolen, or abandoned per the other portions of this we've identified. The next section, the shopping cart signage, we talked about this last time. So the things that are under RCW 9856, you have to have these on a cart for removal of the cart. We have, as talked about, a program for returning the carts to the owners. And what essentially that does is we see it, it's in a park, it's in the creek, it's blocking the sidewalk, whatever. city staff will acquire the cart, take it to a holding area, notify the property owners, and they're given a amount of time to come collect that card. We'll talk about the fees in just a minute. We do charge staff time for retrieval of those cards. And so the idea is that we just hold them very temporarily. We have 24 hours written in here. We've been discussing, maybe getting a little bit more time than that. 24 hours is not uncommon, but that's also for people to go out and actually pick up their own cards out of the right of way or out of the creek or whatever. We don't want to, call somebody and let them know you've got, a day or 2 or 3 to go pick this up out of the creek or out of the middle of the street or whatever. We want to make our community look better right away. So we may change that to something business days for people to consider. The idea is, as I said, we collect the card, we hold it, and then they come pick it up within that reasonable time, or we dispose of it. Space. Fees. This was something we had talked a couple of different ways at the last meeting about how did we want to recoup our costs in accommodating this. The city of Issaquah actually goes through this kind of formula for a 1 hour minimum charge of actual staff time based on hourly rates, inclusive of wages, benefits, and so on and so on. As we were discussing this just at a meeting today, this is a lot of administrative burden on staff to sit there and figure out, well, if you picked it up, it's a $75 charge, but if you picked it up, it's an $89 charge. But well, he was driving one of our leased vehicles, so that's actually more expensive. It's a lot of work. So our proposal here is actually just to add $100 fine to the extra fee schedule, make it really easy, $100 to get your car back.
Is that per card?
Per card. Now, it sounds like a lot until you realize that with all of the security measures that you're required to do per the ordinance, hopefully, within a certain period of time, these cards are no longer of the property anymore, and our retrieval becomes very minimal, much less than what we're doing right now. We've estimated we're collecting far in excess of 50 cards per year. And that's 50 cards that we're collecting, and most of them just go away. They're already in such bad disrepair, covered in feces or mud from the creek or know what else. So they're just going right in the dumpster anyway. So we anticipate though that with the larger retailers engaging in these activities and the smaller retailers maybe not having the electronic rates, but having some other method, we'll see far fewer of these cards. What that number is going to be, but it has to be less than what we're seeing now. 4 of them just down the street over here, as was pointed out earlier. So then the last part of the ordinance is the illegal possession or accumulation of cards. Now, this is already, as I mentioned before, it's a misdemeanor to remove it from the property under the RCW, but we have to have that signage on the cards for it to be crime. And then anybody who is possessing a shopping cart, so maybe you didn't remove it, but you picked it up and you're now the possessor of the card. That is also a misdemeanor because you're guilty of possession of stolen property. So there are exemptions for that for authorized customers, for anybody who's returning a card from an authorized card return company, or employee who's taking out a card, taking it back, and whatnot. These state exemptions are listed up in the definitions. As far as the authorized agent or authorized customer. And that just brings us to the bottom, which is saying they seek other legal or equitable relief to enjoy, et cetera, just in the case that something deal with that. Anyway, and then finally, we propose that the ordinance take effect January 1st, 2025. By having a delayed start on that ordinance, that gives us almost 5 months to talk to the retailers, get them on board, understand what needs to happen, and make sure that they have their security measures in place before the first of the year. Also, they don't have to necessarily have that right at the peak of the holiday season where they can get it done in advance. But it could be expected that the earlier that they do this, the less cards are floating around after July 1st, because any of those cards would have already been collected and returned or disposed of or That is our kind of draft proposal and to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for working on that. Comments or questions?
Under definitions for Part B, it says cart patrol and retrieval company means a contracted agent who recovers shopping carts on behalf of retail establishments within a 1 mile radius of a contracting retail establishment. Is 1 mile going to be enough distance? Because sometimes I see carts way on the other side of town.
We could just cut that out to just entirely say just on behalf of retail establishments.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it.
That would be good. So we could put out on the radio 1 mile and then, yeah.
That's probably for big cities who have no stores and things like that.
How are we handling carts that are being pushed down the road full of belongings?
It is technically a misdemeanor to be in possession of that. I think last time we had talked about if there weren't any other aggravating circumstances, the stores definitely are going to be taking their cards back, but it can still be referred to prosecution if there are other aggravating circumstances.
There's still possessions.
Yeah.
There's still one's possessions of their car. They haven't really taken their possessions. So we can't determine. So whatever it might be in the car, it's of the stores or anybody else's. It's a jacket, it's a bag. It's a bag of groceries. Who knows? It can be technically their possessions. Well, no, the individual will take those. If they're abandoned, if the car's abandoned full, then it's seen as refuse or trash. It's not associated with the camp. If it's associated with the camp, then we have to maintain that property for 60 days. If it's abandoned, nobody's around, it's not associated with the camp, it can be seen as trash. And it can be disposed of.
And if someone is actively pushing it on the sidewalk, it's not going to be a primary offense necessarily to stop them, but if they have other
Right.
issues, outstanding warrants, other things, whatever, then regardless, stolen property has been identified, will be collected and returned to the appropriate.
At the end of the day, the intent is that we're not burdening our police department with maintaining, the use of shopping carts and public records, right? Put a measure in place that addresses that before they leave the premises. And I think we talked about it last night's session. We're not receiving 911 calls for shopping carts and assessing shopping carts. We should be able to address those if they're in. Let's our public safety officers and those resources for services.
And after those security measures are in place, it's going to be difficult to move a car down the street. We're going to see far fewer of them. It's going to be really hard to get those brakes and can't to try really hard to move it a couple hundred feet, I imagine. So I don't think it's going to be much of an issue, but it's going to be considered.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Is the key mechanism for enforcing the use of security measures the $100 per cart fee?
Correct.
So I was under the impression that we're giving them all different options, what they can do to mitigate not losing carts. So, I mean, I'm all for locking wheels on and then they can't leave the property. That solves the problem 100%. If you can't push a cart, they're not going to take the cart. So are we giving them options here?
There, when you just scroll through right there, you can.
Well, I know I read that earlier and that's what I thought, but it sounded like.
We are giving them some options because, for example, while Safeway, Fred Meyer, Walmart didn't meet the cost of $40,000 wheel lock system, maybe Habitat for Humanity or Hop and Shop couldn't.
Correct, and that's the size.
That was the other, because some of them might be larger than 3,000 square feet.
I think
The Olympic Outfitters.
Great.
Goodwill might be another one that has more than 15 shopping carts. They don't have the locks, they can do a baller instead.
So we're not going to mandate that they do the locking wheels. We're going to say you can do the locking wheels or you can stand at your front door and make sure nobody steals them.
Right.
But see, I think that the locking wheels should be required for certain size of a store. I know that, Walmart says they have 800 carts, they're not going to stand up out there in the curb and wait for people to walk off with them.
So in their case, I mean, they're large enough and they have enough carts that it's probably going to be more economically feasible for them to do like the electronic wheels.
And that's would be
But for
great.
some of the mid-sized stores, is what we're thinking about, Shelton or something like that, you know, like. It might be a different.
No, that's great. I just do think the larger stores, though, we should mandate that they actually put the locking wheels on and solve that problem. That's where the carts are coming from. They're not coming from Shop and Hop or O'Reilly's Auto Parts. They're coming from Safeway, Fred Meyer and Walmart. So why don't we just require them to lock those wheels? And then that's probably 99% of our problem. I did hand deliver this proposed ordinance to all three grocery stores today and talked to manager in charge at all three stores. The manager at Fred Meyer's the second day and he said, thanks. But so I told them that this is how the process works. We're going to talk about it tonight. We may move it forward to business where there'll be a discussion and public comment and public hearings and stuff and, kind of explain the whole process. And if they want to write in any expressions, but I'm all for moving this forward and waiting. Hopefully we get some feedback from some of these grocery stores as well. I still think that locking mechanisms is probably our best way out of this. So
As we know, we can go back, change it if this doesn't work.
I just think that it solves the problem, but yeah.
I will say I was at Winco Foods a few months ago, and I saw somebody pushing a cart that had the locking wheel mechanism, and it froze up on them halfway through the parking lot. And because it was on the back wheel, it just lifted up the handle and pushed it forward. So there is a way around it. Just be aware of that.
Okay.
Like, even options that are there. To me, but it's like-
And then if it doesn't work later, we can
Yeah,
bring it back.
it's just-
We can,
I mean, the onus is on the retailer too. I mean, they're not gonna want $100 fine every time you pull one of your carts out of the green. So.
and they probably don't want to be getting calls from the city all the time either.
Well, we don't have to be such an extent, right? That's legitimately a concern. How much commitment do we make?
Right.
And resources we have available. We'd much rather have, we already talked about PD, code enforcement, parks, street employees, out maintaining the assets that we do have and not removing shopping carts. So hopefully the compliance works to a great extent. It's minimal impact, minimal use of resources.
So I know we already collect some cards, but are we actively collecting cards that are sitting out in town for over 24 hours now, or would this be a new change?
We're picking them up essentially as quickly as we see them. If they're in the middle of Midland Park, if they're blocking a sidewalk, whatever, we're picking them up and taking them right away. A lot of times, the cards are unmarked. Some of them, like Safeway's cards have it's actually kind of like engraved into it or whatnot. So they're easy to know which ones they are, but oftentimes they're so damaged or so disgusting. Sorry to say, like, we're not cleaning them, we're not, returning them in refurbished condition.
Those that are abandoned, certainly, they're not being banned, if you will, or in possession by somebody that's are abandoned.
What do you think it costs us to dump a card?
Well, if they're not plastic, we can go and recycle them, but it's by tonnage, so we have to break it out. Weigh a shopping cart, see what it is based on the tonnage or
I can see-
20-yard dumpster.
I can see you calling a grocery store and them coming down and going, ooh, I don't want that. You guys deal with it. Here's your $100.
Yeah.
Is it per day or is it, that's it?
No, but that's why we talked about, Jay mentioned a 24-hour time limit.
Yeah.
We want to adjust that to make it according, so we're not storing these long-term, we're not maintaining that long-term, they're not taking up space in our public works yard, because that's probably where it's gonna be. We have a lot of operations down there, most of you have been there, it's very busy, we don't need to maintain a storage yard for these, over an extended period of time. The $100 will cover it.
I don't know.
guess.
Okay.
We talked about it earlier today, that the $100 is basically gonna cover staff time to pick up the card. Go out, pick it up, bring it back, make a phone call that there's a card waiting for them, and whatever time it takes to dispose of it. So that's,
Those fees go to the general fund.
yes. It'll be on the next room schedule.
Concerned about enforcement, abandoned carts, fine, come up, but if someone's actually pushing a cart, there might be some overzealous people who like to take away their cart. So, I think that might become a problem, but I'm willing to try something new with the council, if we're all in agreement. But I just see that as a potential negative point to this, is that it might cause some vigilantism regarding aggressiveness towards homeless people.
Well, if I can address that, because I actually thought about this too. That person would then be in possession of stolen property. The ordinance is written such that if you have taken stolen property, you are guilty of gross misdemeanor. So if somebody's going out and intentionally wrangling these for people, they're committing a crime doing so.
So if they like stole 12 of them and started hoarding them, then that would be 12 possessions. Okay,
Unless you're authorized by the store to collect them for the store. If you're out collecting them from an individual that may have removed them from those premises, you are now in possession of the shopping cart violation.
take it to ridiculous. What if Walmart started hiring vigilantes to go pick up carts? You
Well,
know,
I mean, it's their cards, it's their property, so.
just saying like, what's the worst that can happen?
They can collect their possessions, right? They have the ability to do that. If they cross that line and assault somebody, take their possessions, then they could be charged with theft at that point as well. I think we have the same mechanisms in place in our laws now that we, as we would then with the shop cart incidents.
I don't see the grocery stores going out there and attacking people because they don't even stop shoplifters anymore. They just wave at them as they go out the door. So, well, hey, enjoy your stuff. I've seen it. So I don't think they're gonna go out and tackle people for the shopping carts.
And to Councilman Gutierrez's point, we're not encouraging the general public to participate in this activity. This is city staff that are authorized to manage this. These are somebody authorized by the retailers to manage their equipment. We want to make that clear. We'll advertise in this section.
Yeah, it's the same as, no one can go out and code enforce on a property or whatnot. I mean, our law says that it's illegal, then you can go out and clean the property against it without. Thanks.
Right.
I do think the 24 hours is a little short, especially, you've got weekends and holidays and some places are short staffed and they're like, okay, well.
72.
72 to 90 hours, something like that would be fine.
Or
Gives you a couple days to.
did you like business days?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
you don't wanna, if you get a call on a Friday and you don't have anybody that can come until Monday.
We're not gonna make a special trip on a Friday, somebody's off, we have various shifts to come down and pick up shopping, but we'll arrange that in the next day or two when we have staff available at the same time, right? Because we have other priorities to take care of, so we don't want to penalize somebody if they're making that.
Somebody do that.
So- It's really,
Say 3 business
Three
days.
I like that.
I like that.
so clarifying, so we have a staff member picking up this cart, taking it to storage somewhere, calling the grocery store to come get the cart. Why don't we just drop the cart off and charge them for dropping it off? Instead of
But
taking
who's
it-
gonna pay
See
at
something
that
in the
point?
park while they're there that they can pick it up and then they can just kind of put it to the side as
Yeah.
opposed to them going and chasing.
We're already picking it up from the park
Yeah.
and taking it back to the yard usually anyway,
Okay.
it's going in dumpsters, so like we're already undertaking.
Okay. All right, anything
So
else?
much for working on that.
Consensus sounds like it's moving forward and I hope we get some little comment back from the big grocery stores as well, but by the next meeting, by the 3rd of September.
We'll make sure and provide that outreach, so they have a draft ordinance and they can read it, they understand the implications.
And as I had mentioned, I think at the last meeting, I had already reached out, I had talked to 2 of the 3 largest stores and 2 of them were in support of it. It sounds like the managers might be different.
He's brand new.
Uh,
He was 2 days, his second day, he said.
I'll talk again.
But they all 3 stores have the ordinance, proposed ordinance, and they said that they would move it up the ladder and provide comment if needed, so. All right,
The Safeway just submitted a request for change of ownership, so that's occurring. So maybe new staff there as well.
I figured that might be coming. All right, council have any new items for discussion?
Happy birthday to Councilman LaFlesh.
Oh, yes, happy birthday, that's right. Should we sing?
Start.
All right, today's session is adjourned at 6:45 PM.
I mean, it's
Recording
not a-